How on earth did Assassin's Creed go from this to this? Now, it's pretty common knowledge by now to see that the Assassin's Creed franchise has been going on a spiral, and no, not an upwards one. Assassin's Creed is, or was, a massive deal in the gaming world, standing out as a franchise that really did shape the gaming industry. When you think about the gaming scene, a few major franchises grab the spotlight, and whether you like it or not, Assassin's Creed is among them. It's a franchise that even people who don't play video games would probably know about, simply because of how massive the game once was. With over 200 million sales and 13 mainline games, this series is one of the biggest gaming franchises globally. Alongside mainline games, it's also introduced multiple spin-offs, comics, novels, a movie, and even an upcoming Netflix adaptation. It's safe to say Assassin's Creed is one of Ubisoft's beloved assets. You see, back when Assassin's Creed was at its peak, it was ridiculously popular. We had insane movie-like cinematic trailers, and they even made a whole live-action movie proving it was a big deal. Now fast forward to Assassin's Creed in the current day, and things aren't looking so hot. It's a far cry from the good days of Assassin's Creed, signaling a rough patch that, let's be honest, is quite hard to ignore. That's not to say the current Assassin's Creed games right now are absolutely shit. In fact, I like Assassin's Creed Origins. I even like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but I'd be lying if I said those games were even considered Assassin's Creed games. It's quite a shock to see how the Assassin's Creed series, which used to prioritize historical accuracy to some extent, has now shifted to taking on mythological creatures and even Thanos in the more recent games. So that's precisely what this video is all about. This is the rise of Assassin's Creed to its unfortunate downfall, and also the future of Assassin's Creed. To start off, we first must go back in time, back to when it all began. The dinosaurs lived between about 245, I'm just messing. 2007, that's the year it all began. There's a genuinely valid viewpoint that exists where 2007 stands out as one of the best years for game releases. Titles like Bioshock, Crysis, The Witcher, Mass Effect, Portal, and of course Assassin's Creed all made their debut, marking the beginning of 6 very iconic video game franchises. Of course, reflecting on 2007 today, 17 years later, many of us likely find it hard to escape the charm of nostalgia, often wearing rose-tinted glasses. Nostalgia holds important sway, but even with that in mind, it's hard to deny that it was an incredibly unpredictable year for new video game IPs. Because let's face it, we had no clue what was about to hit us. Assassin's Creed kicked off as a completely different game known as Prince of Persia. Patrice Désilets, who was the creator of Assassin's Creed at that time, played a very important role in Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, which hit the shelves in 2003. You see, following the success of Sands of Time, Patrice Désilets and his team wanted to create a more expansive open world game compatible with the 7th generation consoles like the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. The idea was to transform Prince of Persia into an open world experience, leveraging the enhanced capabilities of these new gaming consoles. However, considering the limitations of the PlayStation 2, which at that time could not really support such advancements, they opted to start on a new project, ultimately giving birth to Assassin's Creed. This game retained the parkour-centric gameplay of Prince of Persia, but it added an open world twist and a completely new setting. You see, unlike navigating linear corridors filled with all sorts of traps, Assassin's Creed focused on creating your path through an open city where every inch of wall was interactive. When the game was released back in 2007, it not only met but exceeded expectations, showcasing some pretty impressive performance. It even outpaced Call of Duty Modern Warfare as the most pirated game in the UK. The public response was overwhelmingly positive, demonstrating the possibility of a game of such magnitude and making it one of the most played games ever. The success of Assassin's Creed 1 prompted Ubisoft to increase their investment in developing the next installment in the series. Assassin's Creed 2 shifted its focus to prioritize fun. It's interesting how Ubisoft managed to take what they extensively worked on in Assassin's Creed 1 and make it more appealing to a broader audience. By 2009, Assassin's Creed 2 had sold 9 million copies, becoming the best-selling game of the year and establishing Assassin's Creed as a major player in the gaming industry. However, the PC version of Assassin's Creed 2 faced criticism due to the always online requirement for DRM, which did lead to some controversy. Assassin's Creed 2's gameplay was a lot more improved upon from Assassin's Creed 1. The missions in the previous game were criticized for being too repetitive, so to address this, the sequel introduced better and more diverse missions, along with numerous engaging side quests. While parkour was quite solid in the first game, let's be honest, opportunities to use it were quite limited. So in Assassin's Creed 2, the game provided ample chances for parkour. We also got introduced to, in my opinion, the greatest Assassin's Creed protagonist in the series, being Ezio Auditore. A lot of players enjoyed increased freedom in their playstyle, gaining the ability to purchase and use various weapons instead of being limited to a single primary tool. The game also changed settings completely to Renaissance Italy, centering around a more cinematic and character-driven narrative, which was a departure from the detached perspective we experienced in Assassin's Creed 1. There was also real-life historical figures like Rodrigo Borgia, Caterina Sforza, and it also introduced the beloved character of Leonardo da Vinci. So it's safe to say Assassin's Creed 2 was a game that definitely deserves the spotlight it gets. This also applied to Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Revelations. These two games hit the shelves in 2010 and 2011, bundled together as the Ezio collection to complete Ezio's story. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood not only lived up to its predecessor's high standards, but it refined the formula to near perfection. It improved upon graphics, streamlined combat, a much larger city in the form of Rome with all sorts of historical landmarks, and a renowned emphasis on side content. I'm talking about the Leonardo machine missions, the Romulus tombs, the Christina memories, and so much more. Each piece of side content in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and even Revelations was intricately well thought out, making the level of polish seen in Brotherhood remain unmatched in the series. Fast forward 1 year and we're now in 2012. I remember during this time, a rumour circulated about the world ending in 2012, inspiring a movie of the same name. Assassin's Creed 3 also emerged, featuring modern day characters striving to prevent the world's end by reliving the memories of the Native American assassin Ghana. This game's development began in 2010, focusing on the American Revolution. Initially, there were plans for a pretty unique ending involving a spaceship and a new beginning with Adam and Eve. However, Assassin's Creed 2's unexpected success led to the cancellation of this plan. The storyline continued, introducing naval combat, wildlife, and even vegetation. Despite being, I believe, the top-selling game in Ubisoft's history, opinions on Connor's character were very mixed due to his perceived dullness and seriousness. I for one was one of these people that had a very mixed opinion on Connor back when I first played Assassin's Creed 3. However, many years later when I replayed the game, I had a revelation. And no, not Assassin's Creed Revelations. My revelation was that Connor was just misunderstood. In fact, if you want to check out my full thoughts on Assassin's Creed 3 many years later, then check out this video. Rather than being created as an ending story, Assassin's Creed 3 was designed as a series reset. There would be no end of the world, the Assassin-Templar conflict would continue on, and even the EC would receive minimal exploration. Desmond's story would also end, but the series would also continue. However, the ending of Assassin's Creed 3 marked an infamous year for disappointing video game endings. The finale of the game was perceived as very abrupt and just outright anticlimactic. The fan reception to Assassin's Creed 3 was pretty mixed. Some people liked the simplified mechanics of the game, while others were very disappointed by how easy it was. It's safe to say Assassin's Creed 3 that year fell short of the expectations set over the years, leaving a disappointing impression on many Assassin's Creed fans. Oh, and alongside Assassin's Creed 3, Liberation was also released that year, and this game received mixed opinions. Not many fans of the series even played the game, and Liberation pretty much marked Ubisoft's final serious attempt at creating a handheld game. After Assassin's Creed 3, the next mainline game was Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which was developed in 2011. It's set in the golden age of piracy, and what made this game stand out was the merging of land and naval gameplay. By this point, Ubisoft had distanced itself from the key figures that started Assassin's Creed, and hopes for new games were dwindling at this point. Surprisingly, Assassin's Creed Black Flag turned out to be fantastic, free from the pressure of ending a long-running storyline. Graphically, it was hailed as one of the best-looking games. The game focused on taking the role of a pirate in the West Indies sailing the seas and assassinating targets. The character Edward Kenway received widespread acclaim. This game exemplifies what newer titles aim to achieve, a narrative where the Assassin-Templar conflict serves as the moral dilemma for the main character, rather than being the overarching theme throughout the entire story. However, since Black Flag, no other title has successfully replicated this approach. This game is quite heavily regarded by many people as the best Assassin's Creed game ever, or at the very least, the last notable one. Desmond's story ending in Assassin's Creed 3 introduced a new modern day protagonist working at Abstergo Entertainment. This was a very different and unusual approach by Ubisoft. Instead of implementing a new modern day character, they opted for the Far Cry treatment of a silent protagonist with no name or no backstory. I for one found this approach to be more on the disappointing side, and still to this day, the modern day has been absolutely horrendous. Rest in peace Desmond, gone but never forgotten. In 2014, Ubisoft faced a very important decision as the new console generation emerged. They devised a strategy, released 2 Assassin's Creed games on the very same day. One Assassin's Creed title for the last generation being Assassin's Creed Rogue, and one Assassin's Creed title for the new generation being Assassin's Creed Unity. Let's focus on Unity first. Now, this game faced numerous issues on the PlayStation 4, including bugs, a pretty subpar story, weak characters, microtransactions, and a lot of performance glitches. While patches improved the technical side of the game, Unity's constant issues tainted its potential. Now, despite these drawbacks, it stands as one of the best looking titles in the Assassin's Creed series. Unity's graphics even today are considered top notch. The stunning recreation of Paris down to the cathedral's finest details is unparalleled. This level of detail even contributed to the restoration of the real-life Notre Dame Cathedral. The game also featured pretty remarkable crowds of NPCs that, although is pretty ambitious and unique, completely destabilized the game. The innovative free-running system is pretty fun and looks quite impressive. However, it did require extensive gameplay hours to actually become playable. Combat, which was deeper and definitely a lot more complex, suffered from input delay. Even the most important aspect, which was the story. This started off pretty promising, but ultimately fell apart and focused on a pretty cringe, half-assed love story. But that's not all, because Unity marked a change by introducing a leveling system, steering the franchise towards a star of RPG elements, which also influenced the games after. Although it was pretty effective in Unity, it shifted the focus from the narrative to side content and leveling. Yet the leveling system introduced a shit ton of challenges. If you neglected to attempt side content, you'd be faced with a penalized experience and even level caps in the main story. So in hindsight, Unity represents a transitional phase, both commendable for its improvements but also heavily criticized for steering the franchise towards a different direction, as well as a very unenjoyable technical experience. Now, at the same time of this, Assassin's Creed Rogue was launched for previous generation consoles, responding to fan requests to play as a Templar. While it didn't really introduce anything new or meaningful in terms of gameplay or graphics, it certainly addressed plot holes and provided a different kind of experience. Before its launch, Assassin's Creed Rogue garnered a reputation as a Black Flag clone, which honestly isn't inherently negative. The real issue was the game's length, a mere 6-hour Assassin's Creed story coupled with an extensive collectathon. What actually shocked me was that it hit the market at a $60 price point, which is the same as the next generation titles. I remember this decision sparked quite the fair amount of controversy, and rightly so, especially considering Rogue's overall inferiority to Unity. It just made no sense for it to launch at such a high price. I guess that's Ubisoft for you. Of course, now in 2024 you can pretty much buy Assassin's Creed Rogue for next to nothing. Remarkably though, both Unity and Rogue achieved sales of only 10 million copies, contributing to the series' overall success. The reputation of Assassin's Creed was dwindling, prompting a reinvention with the 2017 release of Assassin's Creed Origins. Syndicate sales were among the lowest in the franchise, only surpassing Rogue, so Ubisoft acknowledged the situation and took a year off to reconsider the series' future. The real turning point for the series came at E3, with the announcement of Assassin's Creed Origins. Breaking away from the chronological progression seen in previous games, Origins delved into Ptolemaic Egypt, offering a glimpse into the birth of the Assassin Brotherhood. The game introduced RPG elements, a vast open world, and even dialogue choices. Well, a few dialogue choices. These changes revitalized the series, with Origins selling twice as many copies as Syndicate did in its first 2 weeks. It could even be argued that Origins perhaps saved Assassin's Creed, but that's only speaking from a sales number standpoint. There was also a fair amount of disadvantages when it came to Origins. The animations took a massive backseat, linear stories were no more, and quest givers took center stage. Development of Assassin's Creed Origins started post Black Flag, spanning almost 4 years with over 1,000 contributors. Unlike its predecessors set in single cities, Origins presented one large open world map spanning the entirety of Egypt. The creative director of Assassin's Creed 3 once said that ancient Egypt would be the worst setting alongside Japan and World War II. Of course, this proved to be a revitalizing breath of fresh air for the franchise, winning over both critics and fans and doubling the sales compared to Syndicate, reaching 10 million copies sold. The praise was directed towards the world design and even the main character Bayek, portrayed by Abu Bakr Salim, who simply did an outstanding job. The combat system also changed, moving away from paired animations to a hitbox system, giving more importance to weapon types, range, and even dodging. Free running was reduced to fit Egypt's smaller cities, and social stealth was removed in favor of infiltrating forts and scouting. Of course, when talking about the positives of Assassin's Creed Origins, I must also talk about The Witcher 3, simply because this game had a profound influence on the Assassin's Creed series. Now, my favourite video game of all time is The Witcher 3, and to hear that this game influenced a lot of factors inside of Origins truly did excite me. The difference between Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Odyssey is one that is pretty tragic. It's a difference that nobody ever expected before Odyssey was released. The level of quality that Origins had just simply disappeared 1 year later. The one thing everybody and their mother will agree on is that Assassin's Creed Odyssey is not Assassin's Creed. And that's okay. This game will not cater to everyone. Older generation fans would maybe dislike Odyssey, while the newer generation fans would love it, and surprisingly even vice versa. Quite a few people who were not initially interested in the franchise ended up liking this game. It appears that the game aimed to bring in new fans who weren't typically into Assassin's Creed. This unconventional choice may have been an attempt to reach out to a completely different audience, even if it meant moving away from the existing fanbase. In fact, Assassin's Creed Odyssey was the Assassin's Creed game I introduced to my friend, simply because I knew he was not going to be interested in starting with the older games. Did he like Assassin's Creed Odyssey? Absolutely. He considers it to be one of his favourite games of all time. Do you see that difference? A gamer that has no experience with Assassin's Creed loved this game, but I also know a dedicated Assassin's Creed fan that absolutely hates this game. There's honestly really no winning when it comes to fan reception for Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The Origins experiment worked well, and Ubisoft was ready to fully go with these RPG mechanics. You see, Odyssey, unlike Origins, greatly expanded these mechanics. Players could now choose their main protagonist's gender, interact with dialogue options, experience romance, explore more complex skill tree when compared to Origins, and even encounter a game that consisted of not one but many different endings, which was a first for Assassin's Creed at that time. While it kept the core structure of Origins, Assassin's Creed Origins was not a simple copy-paste job like Rogue was when compared to Black Flag. A lot of gameplay features was reintroduced and also reimagined. Take the naval combat for example. Assassin's Creed Odyssey really expanded on this aspect with a customizable ship, a variety of enemy ships to take down, and even naval side quests being a thing. Similar to Assassin's Creed 3, if you want to check out my full thoughts on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, then you can watch this video I made quite recently. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a game that I would describe as a game for nobody. Before I actually get into the details of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I first must take a look at what happened before its release and focus on the marketing beforehand. Valhalla was the game that aimed to bring back the divided fanbase. You see, Ubisoft wanted to attract two sets of fanbases: the older generation Assassin's Creed fans that love the original games, and also the newer fans that adore the RPG games. Ubisoft employed a very dirty tactic and marked Valhalla as a game that emphasized a return to the franchise's origins with features like social stealth, crowd blending, and fluid parkour. However, the Valhalla gameplay that we all saw before release was made available for critics, journalists, and even certain YouTubers only. Each one of these people was carefully selected, which honestly created a very misleading impression. When Valhalla was finally released and the entire public played it, it's safe to say it's a game that definitely left a lot more questions than answers. Valhalla made slight adjustments to the RPG mechanics, but it failed to enhance stealth and visual flair enough. Funnily enough, the game reviewed quite decently, avoiding the extremes that was seen in Odyssey. However, the Assassin's Creed fanbase remained split down the middle. Since Valhalla did sell well, Ubisoft saw that as an opportunity to keep updating the game with post-launch support to really maximize the amount of money that they can make. This would come in the form of regular updates and quite a fair amount of DLC expansions. One of these expansions being Dawn of Ragnarok, and just take a look at the cover of it. What exactly has happened to the franchise for Ubisoft to implement completely fantastical and unrealistic elements? I remember when Assassin's Creed 1 was released, and in the trailer for that game, they showcased the crossbow but then removed it from the actual game when it was released due to historical accuracy reasons. Does this look historically accurate to you? Correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Assassin's Creed Valhalla is the most unfinished Assassin's Creed game to date by fans. It's ungodly long, and the story would often make you feel like you take one step forward to then take two steps back. The characters are incredibly dull, the writing is all over the place, and even the settings and environment lack any type of engaging interactions. You see, when you pay $60 or so for a game such as Valhalla, you could either end up with two things: The Witcher 3 level of writing, or simply a game that just refuses to end and outstays its welcome like Valhalla did. Games like this do not respect your time. Ubisoft as a company seems to have lost touch with what they once meant to us as gamers and what the Assassin's Creed franchise truly symbolized during our younger years. Unfortunately, this trend appears to be worsening over time. Many of us, myself included, cherished these games in our youth. They offered incredible and unforgettable stories that made us contemplate the world's reality and the influential forces behind it. These games introduced us to diverse characters, transported us to various historical periods and locations, effectively transforming an entire generation of gamers pretty much into history enthusiasts. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is not the decline of this franchise simply because it's the most profitable game in the series. However, profits don't exactly necessarily translate to strong sales. While Valhalla does have 20 million players, this figure does not confirm 20 million copies of the game were sold. What I do find quite odd is that Ubisoft are quick to put out the information that Valhalla reached 20 million players, but we've never actually been told how many units is actually sold. Being a single player game, achieving 20 million players places Valhalla among the most impactful games of the generation, as embarrassing as that is to say. However, it's important to note that this impressive player count is influenced by its availability on subscription services such as PlayStation Plus, and heck, even pirating. So yeah, it's essential to recognize that this 20 million number does not directly translate to 20 million copies sold. Now that brings me to the most recent and current Assassin's Creed game, and that is Assassin's Creed Mirage. You see, during the development and marketing of this game, the phrase back to its roots was tossed around an incredible amount of times. Ubisoft really persisted with this game being the one that brings back the older fanbase. Mentions of Assassin's Creed 1 were constantly being talked about by developers. I mean, they even added a goddamn Assassin's Creed 1 filter to the game, which honestly I don't think anybody even used. While there are certain things about Mirage that align with the emphasis on assassin, stealth and a more linear experience, to me it doesn't really meet expectations. It was initially intended to be a DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, so going into Assassin's Creed Mirage without considering its DLC nature would be pretty idiotic. The contract started off enjoyable but became repetitive, lacking any type of innovation. Limited side content like the Tales of Baghdad felt very similar to world events in Valhalla, which goes back to my point of the game being a Valhalla DLC. Despite improvements in later Assassin's Creed missions compared to the first game, they still follow a predictable pattern. In my opinion, Basim's story doesn't provide enough reasons for an entire new game after Valhalla. Assassin's Creed Mirage stands out as the most historically accurate game in the franchise, not because of the story or the setting, but because it resembles a Mirage itself, and the name of the game is quite fitting. The return to roots promised nostalgia, but in reality it's just a $50 Valhalla DLC dressed up as a full game. Oh, and did I say this game was meant to be a return to roots? Maybe I didn't mention it enough. Perhaps if Ubisoft mentioned it 20 more times, people would actually buy the game. Now I know I sound like a negative Nancy, but I promise there's some positives about Mirage. The story is a lot more linear, so I guess that's a positive. However, that can be overshadowed by massive RPG elements like a leveling system for your gear. The stealth is actually pretty impressive, but then that can be overshadowed by the very basic and generic one-button combat system. The setting is pretty immersive, and Baghdad is a great dense city for an Assassin's Creed game, but then you can look at it from a bigger picture and realize that every single building is copy and pasted. I really wish I could enjoy Mirage, but I just can't seem to force myself to replay it a second time, even with the New Game Plus update and the whole parkour improvement patch, which I still don't know why people are praising them for. I mean, the game shouldn't be releasing with shit parkour in the first place. I'm sure there's people out there watching this that enjoys the game, so that's good to hear. I'm glad there's people out there that like Mirage, but as somebody that absolutely despises Valhalla, all I can picture from Mirage is just a Valhalla reskin with no innovative changes. Now, whether you like it or not, the next two Assassin's Creed games are the last chance for Ubisoft. The two games I'm referring to are Assassin's Creed Codename Red and Codename Hex. I say these two because Ubisoft are really pushing these two games forward, and the marketing and promotional images behind them do look quite promising. The next chapter for Assassin's Creed is Assassin's Creed Infinity, unveiled by Ubisoft back in 2021. If you don't know what Assassin's Creed Infinity is, well, just picture it as a hub connecting upcoming Assassin's Creed games that all consist of different genres and lengths. It's going to blend premium box games with paid and free content, introducing a multiplayer mode to unify the franchise's eras. This platform will now contain the Assassin's Creed's modern day story, which will just completely remove it from the actual mainline games. So what's next for Assassin's Creed? What's the actual game after Mirage? Well, that's going to be Codename Red, a shinobi themed RPG set in feudal Japan scheduled for release this year. However, what a lot of people don't know is that the development of Codename Red faced internal issues, including reported departures due to allegations of abuse against one of its elites. That whole situation got swept under the rug by Ubisoft, so let's move on from that. If we're talking about the actual game, I'll be honest, I'm actually looking forward to it, and I'm very curious to see how Ubisoft will tackle the Japanese time period, because let's face it, that setting has been requested since the beginning of time for the franchise, and let's hope they don't let us down, which I doubt. After Assassin's Creed Codename Red, the next game is Codename Hex, targeting a 2026 release with a more darker theme set in 16th or 17th century European witch hunt era. Now, not much information regarding this particular game has been released. However, this is a game that piques my interest quite a lot. The potential setting for this Assassin's Creed game seems very interesting. The inclusion of witches and magic aligns well with the current Assassin's Creed universe, whether you like it or not, and exploring Germany is a completely fresh angle. If it follows the RPG format like Codename Red will, introducing magical elements and curses for the main character could complement the RPG aspects quite effectively. Oh, and it might even have fully fledged Templars, which would be a noteworthy inclusion as it's a feature that's not been explored since Syndicate. Ubisoft also revealed Project Invictus, designed to reintroduce multiplayer through Infinity, potentially as a free-to-play standalone experience with character crossovers from different time periods. Now beyond these projects, a Netflix Assassin's Creed show and also an Assassin's Creed mobile game named Jade are currently in development as I've been making this video. We've also had the Assassin's Creed VR game named Project Nexus released a few weeks ago, which surprisingly is a pretty good game based on what I've heard. Of course I've not played it because I don't have a VR device, nor do I want to buy one specifically for that game. Now despite the plethora of projects I just talked about, Assassin's Creed Infinity remains the focal point for Ubisoft. I'm even seeing concerns about if it even exists, particularly with Ubisoft's financial challenges raising worries about microtransactions. As I mentioned previously, Codename Red is a game that I'm looking forward to. The envisioned setting such as feudal Japan sounds promising, but you have to remember that this is Ubisoft, so I'm going into Assassin's Creed Codename Red with very low expectations, as Ubisoft often lets me down quite a lot. So yeah. What are your thoughts on the future of Assassin's Creed? Are you looking forward to any of the new Assassin's Creed games like Codename Red or Hex? Do you even care about Assassin's Creed anymore? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because I'm quite interested to see the community response regarding this franchise. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button as it will help me out quite a lot. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one.